Welcome to Accounting High.
I think the key role here that when a business owner finds this person for the first time, it's absolutely game changing. And that's the integrator role. So that's the layer between you as the CEO and the visionary and all the other functional areas. So as the CEO, we don't want everybody reporting up to us. We need a layer in between of someone that's taking our ideas and they're actually implementing them and managing all the functional areas. And sometimes when a client outsources to us and it doesn't work out, it's typically because the CEO does not have an integrator. And so they're managing the relationship with us and they just don't have time for it.
Check out the cash flow show. We discuss topics like getting paid on time, profitability, and managing your bottom line, payroll best practices, the best apps to use, and cash flow forecasting tools. So if you're a small business owner, your help's right around the corner. Fret not. Tune in as Scott and Nikole help you reach your goals on the cash flow show. The cash flow show. Listen and learn. We'll show you how to pay yourself on what your business earns. With Nikole and OKR.
What up, Nikole?
Hey, good morning, Scott. How's it going?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. You know, our pictures that are in the cover image of this show, you know, they were taken at a Freshbooks event.
Yep, up in Toronto.
And you and I are both wearing some of our Freshbooks swag right now. So let's give a quick little shout out to Freshbooks.
What are you wearing?
I got a Freshbooks hat on backwards.
It's backwards. I can't see it.
Yeah. It's my signature black hat that I pretty much wear. It's become iconic. I got a comment on YouTube recently. The guy said, "Do you go to sleep with your hat backwards, or do you turn it forward when you go to bed?"
That's funny. I want to meet that guy. He sounds funny.
So what are we talking about today? We're talking about today's a People Day, isn't it?
People Day. Yeah. Today we're talking about figuring out who you should hire next.
Who to hire next? Who is your next hire? So this is in the assumption that our businesses are, service businesses that potentially this could be their first hire. This could be, they could have, 10, 20 employees. This could be their next hire. But in any case, who should be your next hire?
Yeah. And I would say when you're smaller, it's probably even more challenging because all of the roles within your organization, you can't just go hire a full-time salesperson or a full-time marketing person, right? So it's figuring out who internally can wear some of these hats, and then how can you fit in part-time people or full-time people? And are they contractors? Are they full-time employees? How can you leverage outsource vendors, like what we do? But really the first step is identifying that you need to hire somebody, whether that means either you as the CEO are wanting to spend your time in other areas, or it could mean that somebody else on your team is at max capacity, so they need additional support. And then once you've done that step, then you're going to figure out who you need to hire. So we're going to get into all of that and more.
Let's go to phase one or step one.
So step one is identifying your need to hire somebody. So Scott, when you've needed to hire somebody, how do you usually feel that pain? Imagine back when you were wear your CEO hat here, back when you were actually working in your business.
No. I think I'm going through this right now. I mean, I would have a next hire just logically like anybody else. But even in the beginning, like how did I go through the identifying need? Honestly, I would just wait till everything was overflowing and then hire somebody to fill the overflow, whatever that overflow was. So when I'm thinking back, first days of the firm, I was the only hire. I was the only person working for the owner. He hired me as he had one person always, just like the assistant doing all the administrative stuff, the person doing processing the work, doing it, just basically overflow for him that he didn't have to do. And then the first person I hired was Same thing. It was just overflow, all the extra stuff that I was doing. There was no rhyme or reason to it, let's just say. I don't think this was the right way to do things. It's just the way it is when you're early stages, right? How about you, your first hire?
Yeah. So initially it was me just doing fractional controller work, working with clients directly. And then I ended up hiring somebody part-time. And then she ultimately became full-time as I got more work. But the problem is, as a business owner, right, we're delivering and then we're having to go do business development. So I remember I'd be like driving all around San Francisco and meeting with people to bring in new work. And then you get the work and then you'd have to deliver it. And then you have to do the accounting and send out the invoices and all the admin stuff that you have to do of running a business. So when you're the business owner in a small business, a lot of times you're just wearing a lot of hats. And the way I like to think of it is, as we grow and we take on new revenue, how do we exit each functions of these roles, right? So first it might be we're exiting the delivery side of it. So I've hired somebody who's now doing the client work. Then it might be I'm going to outsource my accounting so I don't have to do my accounting anymore. Then it might be I need a part-time marketing person, right? So it kind of just depends on who you as a business owner, what you enjoy doing and what you're best at. Typically, as the business owner, our last exit ends up being sales. Not always, but usually in a service business, especially when it's a little bit technical, that tends to be the last one. But at a certain point, right, either you or one of your employees are going to reach capacity. And so I guess the question is, on the delivery side, right, do we have any tools or systems that we can go and look at KPIs to try to figure out if our team's at max capacity? Do you guys have any and how do you guys determine when you're at max capacity?
I think we usually use the scorecard to determine some of those things, as we hit certain thresholds, as people felt overworked. I mean, we measure capacity mostly by tracking time too. So we're looking at lagging measures and to see when our next hire would need to be. I think right now our team has always kind of said they're at capacity. So if we take on a few more clients, we're going to need to hire. Let's kind of scope back out too, because identifying where you need to hire in the beginning requires knowing where all those places are. If you are doing all of those things and you're wearing all of these hats, whether they're backwards or forwards, you need to identify what you're doing first. So you need to map that out, because if you're like us and those first hires are just overflow, then you're creating a system that isn't based on rhyme or reason. It's just kind of chaos. You're just kind of handling everything. You just have bodies filling. And that's how a business could grow into $1 million business doing that. You're going to hit a ceiling at some point, and you're going to need to iron out what everybody's doing and map that out. And that's what we'll start talking a little bit more about today, is what we've done, at least at our firm, and identified what all those areas are, and then where your hires need to go. Like, what are the seats that you have on the bus, and identifying what those are, and then get people sitting in them.
Yeah. So let's talk about this concept of an accountability chart, or understanding a business's organizational structure. So Scott, I know you guys use EOS. It's a very popular system for business owners. EOS is Entrepreneurial Operating System. And so if you were to go Google EOS accountability chart and you wanted to visualize this with us, it would be helpful. So typically what EOS says, and a standard org chart looks like, is at the top, we've got the visionary, who is typically the CEO. Then underneath the visionary, we have the integrator, and their title might be like COO Operations Manager. And then underneath the integrator is the different functions. So you have your delivery team, and those would be the people who are producing the revenue, including the people who manage them, people who onboard customers, who do customer service. And then you would have HR. So that's all having to do with policies, company policies, culture, recruiting new employees, etc. Then you have IT, which would be security, computer equipment, etc. And you've got accounting. So that's
So keep in mind, most of these small service businesses, you're doing all of these things. So it's hard for people to visualize. They don't have people doing any of these things in some cases. we're just identifying all the things that you would be doing as a business owner, or you and your small team.
Right. Yeah. So we're identifying them first, and then we can start to say, okay, where do I want to get out of first? I'll keep going a few more here. So accounting. Yeah. So accounting would be everything from like sending invoices and paying bills, doing the books, financial reporting, cash management. And then we've got marketing or business development. So that's any activity that you're doing to get a prospect to get on a sales call with you. So that's everything leading up to the sales call. So that might be doing stuff on social media. It might be going out to networking events, writing blogs, etc. And then we've got sales. So I define sales as anything from when you actually take a call with a client. So the salesperson might be taking the calls, preparing proposals, delivering proposals, doing upsells. And then you've got admin. So you might have an administrative person floating around just helping with the more day-to-day, lower-level stuff that goes on within each of those functional areas. Did I miss anything there?
No. That's, again, a lot of businesses, could be structured a little differently. We had a pretty hard time creating our accountability chart because we had a hard time deciding what all those functions were, separating them out. And I think in a lot of businesses, if you've established yourself before you've separated all these things out, then everything kind of gets blurred together and you don't know who's doing what. So it's very important to just map out what all these functions are and identify what gets done in all of these departments. And then who's the one person that's accountable for all of that getting done? It could be multiple people doing it, but who's the one person that is accountable that says this gets done and it's my responsibility? That's the beauty in all of it. Because then once you map that out, then you can start identifying, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. Now I'm going to hire somebody to do this department, to be in charge and be accountable for this area of the business.
Yeah.
And they could do other stuff too, but they are the ones who is responsible at the end of the day that this gets done.
Yeah. And so like I said, if you Google search,
do you have something like this now at your?
Yes. So I have it in more of a Google sheet where I've actually listed out, okay, like within HR, who does recruiting, who runs payroll, who does employee onboarding, who manages our QSERA, who manages our 401k, who manages reviews, so within each of those areas, I have who's ultimately accountable of that whole area at the top of the box. And then within that, you may have people sharing responsibilities within each of those individual tasks.
Correct. And this is different than an org chart because, like you said, different people are slided in different boxes. This is not how the organization looks structurally, but this is where you identify what those roles are and who is responsible. That's why they call it an accountability chart. And it was just so hard for me to get that into my head.
In some of these areas, like for example, right now I have a fractional integrator, fractional COO. So not a full-time employee, as I'm in the process of hiring somebody new for that role right now. I have a fractional marketing person, the advisor. So she helps with strategy on the marketing side, but then I'm doing a lot of the actual execution of the content. And so there are different ways, a lot of people outsource their accounting. That's what we do instead of hiring an in-house person. But within the accounting function, we may be doing some steps, and then somebody on one of the client's employees may be doing some steps. And so that's why you really want the accountability written out, not just the org chart. And
then why it was so hard for us to do this? Because we do accounting. So then it was like, what's our accounting department? That's everybody. That's what we do. So it was really, and then we had to separate the idea of that as to be, this is our product. This is our production department, actually. So our accounting department is our production department too.
No. So one's your internal accounting department, and then the other is your delivery. Yep. That's what's your revenue driver? That's different.
Yeah. I know. It was a little bit harder for us to look at that as accountants. We tended to look at things very black and white. So we figured it out. I was the accounting department at the time. So you was the owner. Are you your accounting department? Do you still do your own books?
I am. I just interviewed a firm to take it over, and then I ultimately decided to hold on to it because it was too expensive. Also, I figured that they were just going to be asking me, what is this expense? And then I was just going to have to tell them anyway. So I have not offloaded that yet, but I'm good at
Don't
it and I
eat
like
your own
it.
dog food. I got my team doing my own taxes this year.
Well, I think part of this too is like figuring out what you like to do and what you're good at. And like, I like doing the accounting and I'm good at it. So I don't mind doing it. It does fall behind sometimes.
They're doing my taxes, but I still do my own books. They fell very
There
behind
you
this
go.
year. So maybe I should offshore that. There's an accountant for everybody.
So going back to the org chart here, I think the key role here that when a business owner finds this person for the first time, it's absolutely game changing. And that's the integrator role. So that's the layer between you as the CEO and the visionary and all the other functional areas. So as the CEO, we don't want everybody reporting up to us. We need a layer in between of someone that's taking our ideas and they're actually implementing them and managing all the functional areas. And sometimes when a client outsources to us and it doesn't work out, it's typically because the CEO does not have an integrator. And so they're managing the relationship with us and they just don't have time for it. And it just creates tension. Like we need like a glue between us and the company. And we don't want that unless it's a smaller business. The bigger the business, the harder it is for us to have that relationship directly with the CEO.
Yeah. Yeah. The CEOs tend to be somebody that you're like friends with, that you want to say what's up to and all that, but they're not going to help you get much done. I'm terrible at any kind of like follow up or any of that nowadays. I operate like one of our clients, like our CEOs of our clients. They're never in their email. They don't tend to attend to the things that we need from them. But when they have an integrator or somebody like an assistant type person that can handle all that administrative, it's a breeze.
I refer to it as a one-way workflow. As the CEO, you want to be able to say, this is what I want to get done. And there's not a lot of questions that come back. If you're working directly with each individual department, then it's more back and forth information, right? And so if you have an integrator, you can say, this is what I need to get done. And then they're having the back and forth with the heads of each department.
And for anybody that doesn't necessarily have this person, you can be like Nikole and find a fractional COO too. So if you yourself struggles with that, and you don't have an integrator, that might be your first hire. I think that, or your next hire.
Yeah, as soon as you can afford to hire an integrator, it just frees you up as a CEO a lot more. So if you're responsible for bringing in the business, you can spend a lot more time doing sales, marketing, or business development and not having to deal with, okay, now I need to put together an employee handbook. I've got to figure out this new onboarding process, right? Your COO can handle all of that.
Yeah. And they're happy to do it. So there's a lot of recommended reading for our listeners if they're interested in learning more about this. There's the book Traction by Gino Wickman, which all of this kind of stems from or is built upon. But there's also What the Heck is EOS? That's a good one if you're looking at implementing EOS. And then there's Rocket Fuel. That's the visionary. So if you're most interested in the visionary integrator combo, Rocket Fuel is the book for you, because if you're looking to make this hire, it really spells out, and it's also by Gino Wickman, Rocket Fuel. It spells out how to identify if you are the visionary or the integrator too, and then what characteristics to look for the person to complement you. So some people that are COO or running the business, CEO running the business, maybe they naturally tend to be the integrator. We don't find that often, because if you have the strength and the vision to create a business, you're typically the visionary. Some people like to say they're both the visionary and integrator. It would be nice, and we've seen people that I would look up to, but then when the curtain is unveiled, it's a mess. Like they may claim that they've got it all under control and they are both, but then look behind the curtain and it's not as it seems. Anybody that has that other person with them as their partner in crime, the integrator and the visionary, tends to really have you have another person to help hold you accountable too. And you're not just stuffing things under the rug.
I think this is a really important exercise to go through if you have a partner, because when partners go through this, that someone needs to be the visionary CEO, someone needs to be the integrator. And we have friends in our industry, right? Like Kenji and Matthew, they always joke about how they decide like, okay, this year you're going to be the CEO. which sounds funny, but it's actually something that you really need to put on paper and say, like, this is our individual roles, and that could change over time. But otherwise, it's like, who's actually steering the ship here?
Yeah. If you're early stages, you can still have a mini integrator. You don't have to have a partner either. You could, instead of just hiring for overflow, you could be more strategic and find that fractional person or hire an admin, but consider in the back of your mind that this person could eventually become the integrator, which is essentially what happened with me. When I hired somebody, it turned out that person, their role evolved into becoming the COO of the company, my integrator. He started out just kind of doing everything. But then as we started doing EOS, we started to realize that I fit perfectly in this visionary description in how I am. And he fit perfectly into this integrator position as he is. We don't have to change who we are. That's just how we naturally. And so you're going to find that the person you hire may be a perfect fit for that later on down the road too, as you grow. But in the beginning, you just need that hire. You just need somebody that complements you.
And I think one thing to note here too is when you're hiring this integrator person, COO, whatever you want to call them, be careful about over hiring. And what I mean by that is hiring somebody that, if you're a sub-$1 million business, this person is going to have their hands in a lot of things, right? They're not going to have different departments where they can actually manage them. They're probably going to be doing a lot of that work. They're going to be doing a lot of the marketing. They might be doing sales. They might be doing all of the employee onboarding and HR, versus a integrator who's worked at a $10 million business. Their expectation is, I'm not actually doing, I'm just managing. And so mistakes I've seen businesses make is like, oh, I'm going to hire this big, $200,000 person because they've got all this experience, and then they try to plug them into their small business, and it just doesn't work out.
I've definitely seen that. People overhire and they set their expectations so high, so they're going to turn their scrappy little thing into this big professional business overnight, and then obviously there's no alignments too, and things just don't work out in those cases.
Yeah. And I think a big part of that is figuring out what budget do you have with that person, and not getting, and I've done this before, like you get overly excited about someone and then you go way over budget, and then they end up not being who you thought they were going to be. There's always going to be someone that you can pay in your budget. And we're not going to get into that in this episode. That'll be in episode part 2 of this, but just keep that in mind.
Yeah. And it's just important to understand where you're at as a business when you're making this next hire too, where you want it to be, and how can this person grow into that role. So, I mean, I think we've answered the question, where do you start? Who should you hire next? If you don't have an integrator or you don't have any hires, I think that's going to be your next hire.
Yeah. I would say maybe probably you're going to need someone to help you with delivery first, so that you can get out of that. Right. And
yes.
then, because you need to be generating revenue.
Yeah.
So you might have one or two. You might have one or two delivery people, and then maybe a integrator after that. So let's talk about when you've determined that you need to hire someone, you've determined like what that role is. Now we need to decide, is this person going to be a full-time employee? Is this person going to be a part-time, hourly type of employee, a subcontractor, an outsourced vendor? There's the great thing about now with modern technology is that we can outsource anything, and there's tons of people on Upwork that want to do part-time work. So we can be really scrappy with our resources. We don't have to go straight toward, I need to hire this full-time person with benefits. And I would argue that if the role you're trying to hire for is in an area where you don't know how to manage that role, like for example, it's technical, like accounting or IT or marketing, then you should have a piece of outsourced expertise, I think, within that function.
Yeah. Well, it always helps somebody that's working with multiple other clients too, because then they have systems and they'll help you get in check too. Sometimes when you hire somebody outside to come in, then you adopt some of their practices, and then you could take it with you as you grow.
Yeah. And also I would say be careful about having one mistake I see is the integrator gets put into like bookkeeping and they're frustrated because the business owner has a budget, right? Well, they're like, I'm not going to go. I have you. I'm paying you a salary. I'm going to have you do.
Okay, so you have somebody that should be in management that's doing production work and delivery.
No, I'm sorry. I'm saying let's say a business owner. Let's say we're working with a client, and they come to us, and then the COO is like, I've been doing the bookkeeping, but I have no idea what I'm doing. And then the CEO is like, hey, why aren't the books done? Explain to me these financial concepts. And they're like, I don't have an accounting background. Same thing, with people do that with marketing too, where it's like, hey, you go figure out how to use HubSpot, or you go figure out how to do that. And then the COO gets frustrated because they don't know how to use it, or they don't know the HR compliance. So that's why I always like having, whether it could be an hour a month or an hour a week, of an advisor in each of those functions, or even outsourcing it completely with the COO integrator being the glue there. They're managing that team or that person, and they're being educated by them, but don't expect that your integrator is going to know how to do bookkeeping. Like, it's just not realistic.
Well, that's where you should outsource. That's a whole department that you may not even need an employee on. That's something you can outsource, the entire accounting function of your business.
And then on the delivery side, right, what gets challenging is, okay, our team's at max capacity, but do I have the budget to go hire a full-time employee? What happens if revenues goes down? That's always a big risk when you're making a decision there. In those situations, what we might be able to do is we might be able to find a part-time person. We might be able to find subcontractors are always nice because they give us a little more elasticity, because they get paid for what the work they do. So if you have a type of business where it goes up and down all the time and it's not consistent revenue, contractors are really nice because they get paid when you get paid, type of deal. And then you also might look at offshoring too. So offshoring is a great way to hire support where maybe they're not working directly with your customers, but they can totally leverage a lot of what your full-time staff are doing. If you have $100,000 person and you don't want $100,000 person doing like a $10 an hour job. Same with you as a CEO. Stop doing $25 jobs. And so if you think about it like that, of like, what are these $25 job or $10 jobs that I can offshore or find somebody that I can pay an affordable rate to get it off my plate?
Do you have any suggestions on where people can go to look at outsourcing?
Offshoring?
Offshoring, yeah.
Well, it depends on if you're looking for someone specifically in your industry to like deliver the services, or there's like Upwork for fractional type stuff. There's all sorts of resources in the Philippines.
Belay is another one. I think that's mainly from the Philippines.
Yeah, I have a friend. He owns a company called Augmentor. That's Philippine offshoring for VAs. South America's got some offshoring now. There's considering like time zone, and then also considering cultural fit, what you're looking for. There's all sorts of different options.
Well, cool. So a lot of things to consider. We're going to be talking about how to budget for this next, and other aspects on, thinking about when, but shedding some more light back on this whole idea of the accountability chart and separating out all these roles. Let's go back to, what's an ideal org structure when you're at about $1 million, right? Let's say this business is $1 million, it's growing. Do you want to hire to be at that next phase, or do you hire for where you're at and continue? Like, some might suggest you overhire if you're in growth mode, right?
I'm of the opinion that you hire within your resources. I think people are always getting ready to get ready, of like, okay, I'm going to hire the next person and I'm going to have this revenue coming in. But if the revenue doesn't come in, then you're in a situation where you might need to lay people off, or you don't have the margin that you're looking for. So if you have a repeatable marketing system and you have consistent leads coming in that you can track and certainty around revenue coming in, then sure. But if you're like referral based, unpredictable leads coming in, then probably want to just hire within your budget, which we can talk about next episode.
Cool. Yeah. So don't get overly ambitious. about it or anything. Let's keep things within range, and we'll tell you how to do that next time. Well, dope.
Yeah. Cool.
This has been another wonderful installment. Any other summaries? Anything else to leave our students with today?
Oh, one more thing I will add is repeating what I said earlier about you can find somebody in your budget. And part of that is attracting people to your business, because people will take a job because they like the culture, they like the vibe of the company, and they're excited about the growth potential. So if you're doing stuff on social media, you have good marketing content, you can attract good people who are willing to work with you within your budget. So don't get caught up into, I need to find a recruiter. And then the recruiter's like, well, this isn't enough. And you need to pay them $150 when your budget was only $90. Just keep that in mind.
Oh yeah. We've had a lot of success with that, both you and I. So putting yourself out there is always yields bountiful returns when you need to ask for something from that community. So go out to the communities that you're in, the watering holes that you go to, and put yourself out there, and you may see later, you find your next hire through that, whether it's LinkedIn or other Facebook groups or other types of things.
Yep. That just happened to me. Did I tell you I found a new COO?
Aha.
Yeah.
Did you?
Met her at a conference and then stayed connected on LinkedIn. And so, yeah, there you go.
Look at that. That's it right there. You go get to conferences, put yourself out there, meet people, and then good things may come your way when you need it. Thanks. It's great advice, Nix.
All right, Scotty.
Hiring. Peace out, homies.
See you at the next one. Bye.
So you're drowning in cash flow issues. You run a business, but feel like it's running you. Customers won't pay, but you got bills due. It appears you won't have enough for payroll coming up soon. It seems like you're running nowhere fast. You work hard, but never able to withdraw cash from the business. You get more customers, hire more employees, but still take home hardly anything. You feel like you're on a hamster wheel, frustrated because the battle's always uphill. Even though you got a bookkeeper on your team, they send you reports, but you don't really know what they mean. Your CPA doesn't understand a thing about your business, at least that's how it seems. But if you want to get above water and grow, check out the Cash Flow Show. This is the Cash Flow Show, where we help the small business gain momentum and become profitable. This is the Cash Flow Show. Listen and learn. We'll show you how to pay yourself on what your business earns. Cash Flow Show. Cash Flow Show. We discuss topics like getting paid on time, profitability, and managing your bottom line, payroll best practices, the best apps to use, and cash flow forecasting tools. So if you're a small business owner, your help's right around the corner. Fret not. Tune in as Scott and Nikole help you reach your goals on the Cash Flow Show. The Cash Flow Show, where we help the small business gain momentum and become profitable. This is the Cash Flow Show. Listen and learn. We'll show you how to pay yourself on what your business earns. Cash Flow Show. Our advice will take you far. Cash Flow Show. Tune in with Nikole and OKR.